Amy, I'm a bit nervous today starting out this podcast.
Oh my god, why?
Mainly because I always am.
Oh, valid. Well, not all nerves are bad, TechReal.
Oh, really?
Virgil. Hi.
Virgil. I wish all of our episodes about sides started like that. We just say a quick sweeping statement and then just the name.
We really should just scrap the podcast and go back and do it all again.
Cancel the podcast and go back and do it again?
Cancel the podcast, do it all again.
There it is.
Is that what then?
There's our one of the day.
Hi, everybody.
Hello, everybody. My name is TechReal.
And I'm Amy.
And welcome to Side-ology. Today we're talking about Virgil. If you couldn't already tell. by the specific Virgil.
I love Virgil.
Oh my god, do you?
I'm very excited today, yes. Also, I drank coffee, so I want to say apologies in advance, but, you know, I'm going to own it.
Fair. I didn't drink coffee, and I'm tired. And nervous.
That's fair. I can give you mine. I'll just run down to New York.
I don't like coffee, but, I mean, feel free to run over here anyways. You can. Oh, well, running in place like that isn't going to help.
I have the Virgil jacket on, so I can do anything.
Oh, dang. Especially sitting on things that aren't meant to be sat on.
And
I'm actually quite offended that you're in a chair right now.
I didn't even think about that. I'm offended. No, I'm offended.
You should have shot this podcast from the roof.
Well, cancel the podcast once again.
Cancel it. Oh my god.
So, if it wasn't clear, today we're going to be deep diving into Virgil, as we've already established. And so, the disclaimer that we say every time, the info that we're talking about comes from our experience with the series, our experience with therapy, our experience with psychology classes. We are not professionals. So some of the things we're talking about, we don't know everything about. We are just mere fans who just are very excited about this series.
As I always say, I think I always say this, or at least I've started to continue saying this. If you somehow think from what you've seen of us that we're professionals, that is a you problem. That is not on us. We have gone out of our way to prove that we are not professionals.
Quite indeed not. I am getting closer to being one.
Oh my god. But, I mean, you already are the studious one, so of the two of us, you are
I'm about
closer.
To have a major in psychology.
Oh, well, yeah, you're closer. You're not there yet, but you're getting there. Soon you will be like a professional.
Yeah, no, that was it.
Remember
you just need to write it out. That was it.
Remember that time earlier in the podcast when it just started and I said I was nervous? That wasn't just show talk, folks. That's just my genuine feelings.
But genuinely, nerves can be a good thing.
Oh my god! I guess we will be discussing that today. Are you sure nerves are a good thing? They're not doing me well.
They are. Dude, this is my favorite character we're talking about. This is my favorite character.
And this is up on my list of favorite characters.
I love Virgil so much, so I'm so excited to talk about him. So, we're going to figure out what Virgil represents. Now, this is not as detailed of an answer because Virgil has only really been said to be anxiety.
Fair. That's actually an interesting point I hadn't considered before. A lot of the other sides are really labeled to be various things, whereas Virgil is sort of just anxiety.
Virgil is anxiety. He is the stoic. He is the rock on which we stand.
That is so interesting. Man, Virgil is a different little boy.
I love Virgil.
First his name being different from anyone, and now his purpose. He's so singular.
I love my guy. This dude, so listen, I love everything about Virgil.
God, we just started the podcast and I've already learned something completely I never even considered.
I'm so glad you learned something.
God, Side-ology.
Side-ology. Wow. Okay, so I wrote out the different places where his purpose is represented. So you hear people say anxiety throughout the entire series, obviously, and we'll talk more about what anxiety is. We also have, once accepting anxiety rolls around, part 2, Logan labels him as a natural fight or flight reflex, which basically is anxiety to an extent, but that mindset of I think that adds to it in a way, being like the passive energy or the aggressive energy. So I think he's kind of the one that decides that and how he approaches conflict and trying to avoid conflict or that type of rotation or something. And then I also wrote down the expectations for social gatherings, that he like kind of sets Thomas's expectations for certain events and things. I think that's a really interesting thing that I don't think anybody talks about.
So that might be like a different extension of it. It's not even just like anxiety, but sort of like forethought.
Yeah.
Interesting. I mean, which makes sense, because anxiety, I feel like, is one of those things that makes you like consider what might happen. It's one of those things that makes you branch into like what am I trying to say? Like imagining different scenarios, what might happen, sort of that sort of world of like trying to figure out what to expect before you get into something to sort of ease the anxiety. So that does make sense that would go hand in hand with Virgil's purpose.
The expectations, yeah. So I went to the association, or this, what, I don't actually know. Hold on. APA. I know what APA is. Let me just, hold on. Momentary pause.
I love how I can see on the notes that you're clicking it. I can tell.
Shush. Don't tell, that's secret information.
I already told it. It's out there. You'll have to cancel the podcast to take that info back.
Anyway, so the American Psychological Association is something that I have to work with a lot as somebody who is working on a psychology major. And they had an article about anxiety that we're going to link below and around if you're listening on Spotify. But basically it said that anxiety is an emotion characterized by feelings of tension, worried thoughts, and physical changes like increased blood pressure. So I thought that one was interesting because it said it's an emotion. And I went, I don't know if I agree with that, but...
Yeah, I mean, I think anxiety can spark emotions. I don't know if I would call anxiety an emotion in itself.
Yeah.
It's more of a reaction than anything. It's sort of like, well, not a reaction. Well,
I wouldn't say reaction. I would say like it's... I mean, I guess it is fear.
Well, I was going to say, because I was thinking back to, like, Inside Out, and I was like, they categorize fear as an emotion.
Inside Out.
I know, it's disgusting, but we have to just, like, as a baseline of, like, what do the dumb people think things are? And then we can branch up from... I'm sorry, that's really mean to Pixar. But,
It's not dumb.
Make a better Inside Out, and we'll talk.
I will say it's interesting that a lot of these big psychologists are calling it an emotion.
Yeah.
And yeah, like, even though we may not agree with everything that the people who worked on Inside Out say, I mean, that's still an emotion to them.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I guess I don't understand. I guess I don't see why it wouldn't be an emotion necessarily. But, like, for some reason it is weirder to box it in with that. That'd be weird and strange.
But also, like, in terms of fear, that mindset of, like, if you're approached with something that scares you, you have to make a decision, which is that natural fight or flight reflex.
Yes.
So I think, honestly, it is an emotion in that way.
I would agree with that.
Like, you're scared, I guess, is an emotion.
I mean, it's a feeling. I mean, being scared is a feeling.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's different enough from the other feelings to be categorized as such. So, yeah.
But I also found on that same article that they said anxiety is considered a future-oriented, long-acting response, broadly focused on a diffuse threat, so something that's like in the future, whereas fear is an appropriate, present-oriented, and short-lived response to a clearly identifiable and specific threat. So anxiety is kind of the worry of what's to come, whereas like fear is directly addressing something in the present.
I would make the argument that anxiety is also present-oriented. I would also make the argument that anxiety can be past-oriented. I often get nervous about things that are currently happening, like anxious about things that are happening and things that I already have done.
I mean, are you talking in the lens of like anxiety about things that are currently happening and you can do something about right then?
I mean, I suppose.
Because if, like, for example, in the in the Frozen episode of Sanders Sides, they were talking about something that he couldn't do anything about right then, which was making him really anxious because of the future of what could happen. Whereas if he's like, if you're scared of like someone in a haunted house and someone comes out and spooks you, like that would be fear.
So if I'm, so the consensus there is that if I'm dealing with a situation that still has other paths that can be taken, still has a choice to be made, then that is not anxiety, that's fear.
Yeah, I think
Interesting.
I think where you're going, from what I'm understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like you're going on the route of like social anxiety and how you like in the current conversation.
Yeah, that's where my thought goes to immediately, because that's a big chunk of my own anxiety is very much social anxiety.
Right, but I think social anxiety is the mindset of, will this person like me in the future? Will this person still want to be my friend? Will this person give me what I'm looking for? Will this person blah, blah, blah? Like,
okay, that makes sense.
This something, whereas fear is like, this dude just came up and punched this guy over there, and now he's walking towards me. Fuck.
Okay, I see that.
Why was that the example? I don't know. But
this punching is fun.
I guess so. This dude's walking towards me. Okay, so that's interesting. And I think anxiety could be considered an emotion. It really is a build-off of fear, though, I think.
Yeah,
I think it's like a square is not a rectangle, but a rectangle is a square or something. You know, that mindset. One of the two, or whatever.
Is that correct?
Is that right? Hold on. A rectangle is a square, but a square is not a rectangle.
Is a rectangle a square? I don't know if that's correct, is it?
Rectangle is a square, yeah.
That doesn't make sense to me at all.
I didn't know you didn't know this.
This doesn't logic to me, no. I'm not here for this.
Well, that's what I'm trying... Okay. Well, I thought you
I have a lot of questions today, apparently. I'm Mr. Contrarian over here like, what do you mean?
I'm muddling the playing field. Hold on.
I think you could say that like all fingers are thumbs, but not all thumbs are fingers. Wait, I might have said that backwards. I need to go home.
No, but that's what I'm talking about. Yes, you're correct. That's where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
I'd never heard that one, but yes.
All thumbs are fingers, but not all fingers are thumbs. I think that's how I said it correct.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
I'm gonna mention I'm nervous and tired.
You're fine. This is Decker. We're talking about Virgil today. That's the best time to be nervous.
Mm-hmm. It's the only time.
But that's what we're defining anxiety as. And it's interesting that they said emotion, but yeah. I guess that's something that a lot of people agree with, and that anxiety is an emotion.
It seems so. I would probably sooner say that fear is the emotion and anxiety is like a shoot off of fear, like I think you mentioned, but
yeah, I think it's under the umbrella and it's a deeper thing, because that's why people have like the disorders. I think it's just really a specific part of it.
I think anxiety makes you feel fear, but I don't think anxiety is fear, and therefore anxiety is not like...
It's well, that's the thing. It's a dysregulated fight or flight response.
Yes.
So it overworks itself. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. If it's in people who have a disorder, but like in people who have a disorder, it's just an overregulated fight or flight system. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah. Interesting. Crazy.
Jinx.
I love it. I love this stuff. Anyway, okay. So the other like studious, quote unquote, thing that I want to bring up is the fact that I feel like it's relevant to note that there's a lot of people today who are, this world, the current world that we live in is kind of more uncertain than it's ever been. I mean, I don't know if that's a true statement, but Psychology Today was talking about how there's a general rise in anxiety recently, and it's because of, that it says anxiety is the burden of uncertainty in almost every domain of modern life. The general rise in anxiety is that burden of uncertainty in response to an array of economic and cultural shifts. And I know when this episode comes out, and just in life in general, there's a lot of unknowns right now.
Oh yeah.
So
I mean, we're in the 2020s. Things have kind of gone a little downhill in the health department lately.
ever since,
Ever
we've
since
been
that
in
happened.
a very interesting place.
Yeah.
But
In addition to the fact that people are more mental health oriented in general nowadays, so I think it comes up more. Plus the fact that things just keep getting more expensive and etc.
Yeah.
Like it's a different generational thing, and I think people are just getting more like there are just more cases of anxiety more and more, especially nowadays.
Yeah, and I think it's relevant to be aware of that with Virgil, because Virgil is like one of the first episodes that the series was about adulting
Yeah.
and being independent. And I know Virgil wasn't in that episode, but that type of thing is consistently on Thomas's mind.
Oh yeah.
And that contributes to a lot of what he says. I guess I didn't mention that we're doing, I always mention that this is like a character analysis of Virgil.
Oh, yeah.
So like in that mindset, that's something that I pay attention to when I'm playing Virgil, is just the uncertainty of life and the life we live right now. Am I capable of doing the things that I need to?
Yeah, which makes sense. I mean, there's a lot of like pressure through like other people, through media, through all this to be a certain way in life, which is why I know like a lot of like neurodivergent people tend to struggle. What occurred just there? I see you reacting. Did you like burp?
Yeah, sorry.
My lord, today is an interesting one.
I didn't think about it until it was too late. I went,
Okay. I didn't hear it at all. I only just saw your face.
Fantastic.
Well,
sorry, audience.
But oh, I lost it. You burped my point away. What was I talking about?
No, I'm anxious.
Oh yeah, no, there's just a lot of expectations to be certain ways, and it leads to a lot of people struggling because they feel like they're not doing their part, being enough. Especially because, again, like, people, parents will get at you for that, like, family, friends sometimes, like, school and jobs, like, they all expect a certain thing out of you. And if you feel like you have to live up to a certain bar or else you're failing at life.
Yeah. And honestly, you can see that worry in every side. I mean, especially the ones we've recently talked about. Roman wants to be successful and is so like pressed about it. Patton wants to be right and is so pressed about it, or just like wants to get this weight off of his shoulders. And then Logan is also like fighting to be heard. Yeah. And in not being heard, he gets more nervous. So like Virgil has a lot of ammo, I think.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said in the fact that, like, I feel like in general you can see some of each side and each other's side. I mean, obviously, like, with exceptions. Like, I think there's a little bit of each side and each other's side if you look hard enough. But I feel like Virgil shines, like, anxiety in them shines above, like, other, like, factors. Like, they all have something to be anxious about. In some less than others, but, like, it's pretty potent.
And I mean, I guess I hadn't considered to put on the list of things that Virgil represents. I think when Logan said that Virgil has a seat at the table, which means it's probably a little more heightened than most people's, I think as somebody who has an anxiety disorder and heavily relates to Virgil, heavily, I think it's important. Another important thing to establish that Virgil feels like he has more of a voice because of because he potentially is a part of someone who has an anxiety disorder or something that is, he has more power.
Yeah, he holds a lot of stock in what Thomas feels.
Yeah, than most sides is what I'm saying, yeah. So that's another thing, point of contingency. I guess I haven't really, I don't know if I talked about this before we started the podcast, but I've always said that Virgil's the most powerful side.
Oh yeah, we've definitely had conversations about it, I know. Which makes sense, because I feel like this is true just about anyone with anxiety, but like, if you are anxious about something, that shines above any other thought a lot of the time.
It shakes everything.
Oh yeah.
It shakes everything. Unfortunately, like, I don't ask to your friends with anxiety disorders, but just the mindset that if Virgil's worried about something and he's not being consoled in any way, he could take Thomas down. Mm-hmm. Like, even in bed, and literally the whole "you tried, you failed, let's go to sleep."
Yeah.
Oh, Oh, listen, the amount of time, or the hide under the covers until the sun goes away. That is very true.
Honestly, and I mean, honestly, unchecked anxiety is what leads to, like, panic attacks even.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, there's such a detrimental effect to ignoring Virgil for too long.
Yeah.
And again, that's even assuming you can ignore Virgil, which you really can't.
Someday, I guess I just have never closely, like, in deep conversation interacted with anyone who doesn't have an anxiety disorder to some extent, or intense anxiety, because, like, I don't know what that would look like.
Yeah, I feel like, and I mean this with the utmost respect for people who don't have anxiety, but I feel like if I talked to someone that didn't have a similar level of anxiety to me, I'd be a little offended. I'd be like, how dare you exist better than I do, you monster.
I don't think... I actually had an interaction like that very recently. I've told you about this. But, like, it was... This person... There's no hate to people who don't have that level of anxiety, but I just want to, like, understand how your brain works, because, like, I only see Virgil through the lens of an anxiety disorder.
Yeah.
Because I have one. So this person... I was... we were at work, and we were talking about I was a server at one point, and when we were talking about making mistakes, because someone was really, like, frustrated at a mistake they made or something, and the boss kind of came down on him or something. And so this person just kind of goes, I mean, if I make a dumbass mistake, I'm going to be okay with that, because, like, the boss can tell me that and it's a dumbass mistake. It's all right. Like, I know. But if, like, I didn't, then I'll have something to say. But, like, yeah, no, if I made a dumbass mistake, I'll just accept it and move on. And I went,
how?
You're gonna just, what? You're not, what, huh?
You mean that's not going to ruin your next week?
Not gonna ruin your day? What?
How do you not think about that for the next 2 months?
And I mean,
that's all I ever think about.
That's something that I don't talk to people like that as close, and I wish I want to at some point, but, like, I guess that's what I'm trying to say here, is that my lens of Virgil is very disorder. It just is.
You're used to being around people who just, like, struggle with it constantly.
And the thing is, like, Virgil does have a seat at the table when I'm dealing with some kind of decision or conversation in my head or something. Like, I'm just very aware that my anxiety is part of it. Like, what can cause me, which action is going to cause the least anxiety? Is that a route that I'm willing to take? Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So.
He's a powerful boy at the end of the day. He has a lot of hold on what goes on.
It's very interesting. Anyway, so.
Oh,
is there anything else
Sorry, yeah?
Oh, please. That's actually what I wanted to
you were about to segue, and I was about to be like, well, also before we segue, I just want to reference the fact that usually around this time, before we start getting into the episodes, we would talk about what we theorized would happen if a side were to duck out. But the thing is, today, we really don't need to do that, because Center Sides did it for us.
I have a lot to say about that episode. I think that episode is fascinating. That's the episode that made me fall in love with Standard Sides. So I'm stoked to get there.
Oh yeah, we're gonna get there.
We'll go one episode at a time. We don't have to think about how Virgil would duck out, because he did.
Yeah, I just wanted to reference that, because that was, like, that became the consistent pattern, and now we can. Also, I just want to reference something. I don't know if I've mentioned in the podcast before, but I just heard it. I'm so sorry about my squeaky chair. I hear it constantly. I don't know if it bothers anyone. Watch now, it's going to bother everyone. But, like, I hear it happen, and I know it must get picked up. And I don't listen back, but I'm like, I know it must get picked up. And it drives me nuts. And I try not to move too much so it doesn't do it. But, like, it just sort of happens because I adjust. So sorry.
I don't hear it, but I also know if you've gotten this far in the podcast, I have a feeling there may be some neurodivergent fans out there who are listening to us. I think there's probably a chance.
That's my concern, is that people with ADHD is going to, like, hyper-focus on that sound, and they're like,
well,
because that's mine does.
Have already been hyper-focused on it, and then be like, thank you, somebody said something.
I'm so glad, 9 episodes in, you finally fucking said something.
You finally said something.
Oh my god. Also,
Okay.
wait, one more thing to mention. Like, this is dating the episode, but like, we're recording this on the anniversary. I can't believe we didn't say that up until now, but like
7 years, man.
7 years.
Crazy. Let's date this video.
Let's date this video. Let's take it out for a nice dinner and date it.
Oh my god, it's crazy because I mean, just a minor little reflection. I mean, I know I said this before, but I've been watching since the beginning, and I've watched my life change over the 7 years that I've been watching Sanders Sides. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, thinking back to the Amy who started watching Sanders Sides, I was very different. A very different human. So it's really cool to watch, to have had Sanders Sides come with me.
No, honestly, it's strange because it's one of those things that, again, like, in recent time, like, mental health content has become now so important to me. And it's funny to think that, like, this silly show that I started watching started to teach me so much about, like, the world and myself. And it's just so interesting that, like, it's just that we have, like, not only is it something that has taught us, but now it has caused, like, so many conversations between us that it's caused a podcast. Like, it's gotten so into our brains and the way we think about mental health.
Yeah, I mean, that's honestly how we became friends.
That is so interesting. Sanders Sides literally is the reason not only this podcast exists, but, like, our friendship exists to an extent. Because, like, obviously we met, like... you interacted on my video. Oh no, you interacted with me because of a Sanders Sides video I made too.
Janice video, yeah.
That's so funny.
Isn't that crazy?
My God,
yeah.
Thank you, Sanders Sides.
I knew, honestly, at the beginning of me being on TikTok, I was seriously looking for friends because I was getting so addicted to Sanders Sides that, like, I needed someone to talk to about it, and I needed someone to geek with me. So, like, I gained so many friends that I hold so dear now. Like, it's just so cool.
That's really neat.
Yeah.
Happy anniversary, Sanders Sides.
Yay!
Oh
Sanders Sides! Hoopla! Oh. Sounds like a lot of hoopla.
Oh wow, you're the one who referenced it. Usually that's me.
Oh, I love referencing SpongeBob if I can.
It's so classic. We love that old SpongeBob.
Yeah. No. That's a whole topic.
I wasn't going to say a dang thing. I wasn't even going to make a noise because I was like, I know I will. Ooh.
But I can't walk past it without showing my distaste for the current SpongeBob. Nope.
Yeah, no, that's so valid. I refuse to watch current.
I refuse to watch current. Nope.
Oh.
Anyway.
Man. Anyways.
So,
Episodes.
What are the episodes that Virgil's journey has gone on? Where is he going?
Well,
how did he get here?
I think the first one to talk about would be taking on anxiety. The very first... I mean, that's not even an episode, really. It's sort of just I don't even know what you classify
I think
it
it's
as.
an episode.
No. Is it?
Yes. Yeah.
We're talking about the one with Lily Singh, right?
Yeah. That's a Sanders Sides episode.
No, I would not agree with that sentence.
It's in the list. It's in the list. It was the first time he said, "Please welcome my anxiety."
I think it just throws me off because that has such a different format. It doesn't feel like an episode of Sanders Sides. It feels like an asides is what it feels like.
Yeah, but like, I mean, technically, but like that's the thing. The earlier Sanders Sides, as we've mentioned, the earlier episodes of Sanders Sides were supposed to be one-off. They weren't any. It wasn't supposed to be a series.
Still so weird.
And I remember watching that episode and not really. As I say, like at that point in Sanders Sides, no one was really looking at it as a series. It was just kind of like, oh, that's a cool video. Yeah. But because that character turned into Virgil, it became a really relevant episode to Sanders Sides.
That's true. I guess the format wasn't like solidified enough yet. It's so weird to think about. Anyways, taking on anxiety. I remember nothing about that episode, to be completely honest.
I know there's people who have had really intense issues with anxiety in general who have told me that they really didn't like that episode because of how surface it is, and not like deep anxiety comparing that episode to Accepting Anxiety. There's a very clear difference in how anxiety is discussed.
I mean, I suppose.
Because sometimes, but that's the thing, like sometimes with anxiety disorders, taking a deep breath doesn't help. Like it does, but it doesn't like solve anything. Whereas that episode kind of made it look like that's it.
That's true. I will also... I will try to defend and say that maybe that was a point in this... Like, you could clarify that as a point in the series where Thomas's anxiety was starting to surface but had not reached the depths of which it is now. So maybe the anxiety he was feeling at the time was low enough to be solved by such simple solutions.
I mean, yeah, because anxiety can be a disorder that forms later.
Yeah. Like, we don't know how deep the anxiety disorder was at that point. That could, like, anxiety at that point still could have been something as simple as, like, social anxiety.
That's a fair point.
Which, like, I know when I'm dealing with social anxiety, like, a deep breath is something that is pretty beneficial. Not a fix-all, like, type of thing, but definitely, like, assists.
I mean, I think it's relevant to regular anxiety in general because you're looking at it as the villain already. Like, that episode introduced Virgil as the villain.
That's true.
So I think it's interesting how, like, if you don't think about your anxiety much, but it happens, like, it's not something that's positive to you first. Especially if you have some kind of disordered anxiety. So those are just tips for, like, a regular day. But even then, he was framed as the villain.
Yeah, oh yeah. Well, it's so weird to think he was the villain for a while.
It's important to frame him that way because that's part of his story arc. Yeah. Because he was looked on, every move he made, he was kind of criticized for.
Yeah, which, I mean, makes sense because, like, it's something that really messes with your mind, so it's really easy to look at that part of yourself and be like, that's the dumb part. I don't want that part because it only makes me feel bad things. There's nothing beneficial here. And poor Virgil.
That's the thing. I've had a lot of time in therapy, and we'll talk about this as we go. I've had a lot of time in therapy to recognize that, like, most of the parts in you are just trying to assist you in some way. And even if it's disordered and hard to deal with, or very, very difficult to deal with, that doesn't mean that your brain is trying to do something to hurt you. Your brain is trying to do something to fix a problem.
Yeah. It's easy to assume self-sabotage, when in reality it's just your brain trying to be like, hey, watch out because I'm trying to protect you, as opposed to like, hey, suck it.
Yeah, and I think that's what's cool about how, I mean, I guess the next episode Virgil appeared in was The New Year of Lying to Myself, but I like how Thomas really put the next episode that Virgil was kind of the central focus as the dark side of Disney.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
It immediately softened him up. Something was a little more like, oh, he's actually kind of not as scary. I mean, he is scary, but like, you know what I'm saying?
He's spooky, like, but it shows that there's like not as much malicious intent there as we may assume.
Yeah, he's spook, but he like, it's not as like, it's like oh.
He's scared, but he really care.
Oh my God.
Don't credit me on that one. I heard that somewhere else.
I need it stitched into my hoodie. He's scared, but he do care.
I feel like I got that from Game Grumps of all places, but I don't remember what the context was.
I don't know.
It is a good one for Virgil, though.
You and I both have a lot of YouTube stored in our brains, so
we have just various YouTube preferences
of somewhere. Yeah.
It's just they start to get detached from their original sources, and they're just like words in your brain after a while.
Yeah. So, yeah, The Dark Side of Disney was the first time he's not really the villain.
Yeah, it shows that like he actually cares about some things, as opposed to just hates on everything.
It rounded him out as a character. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, it immediately, I don't know. It's just interesting. It was interesting to watch Roman be so against him too. Like, you're kind of learning along with Roman, Patton, and Logan that Virgil's not the villain. Like, I think it's interesting that this was just something that started to happen in real time, kind of, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and it's a good episode to show that, like, you can't always assume someone's intentions just because their reactions and feelings towards things hurt you or make you feel uncomfortable. It just, you know, sometimes people just have different thoughts, and that doesn't mean they're doing so through malicious intent.
Correct.
So, yeah.
Crazy. What's the next episode, Typer?
Next up is My Negative Thinking, the debate episode between Logan and Virgil.
Why do you think that one's why is that relevant, do you think?
Well, I don't remember.
That's fair.
I think I got nervous because I didn't expect the question.
That's fair. No, I'm
trying to
just,
remember the episode well enough.
Here's the deal. I could talk circles around Virgil forever, and I just want to give you space.
No, you're so fair. Trust me, I know there's a couple things in some of the next ones that, like, I'll have more to say about.
Yeah.
I think there's certain episodes I forget some of the impacts of because I haven't seen them in a while.
Oh, that's fair.
Yeah.
Okay,
You might need to handle this one.
Yeah, no, you're good.
I feel terrible saying that on a Sanders Sides podcast, and I'm like, I have no idea how this relates to our core subject, but you know what they say, I am, in fact, the layman. So,
no, you're good.
Try my best.
I mean, we're next time we talk about Janice, you'll have.
I'll have things to say.
No, listen, this is just my moment, I guess.
Oh my god. My power smoke? No, we're not there yet.
Not yet, no. Well, but okay. So my negative thinking happens, and I mean, he's still kind of being established as not the villain. He's starting to participate in conversation more, and he's starting to really come into that. I guess we could kind of theorize that Thomas didn't have an anxiety disorder before.
I mean, I'd be willing to, because, I mean, as he's exploring his mental health more and more, I mean, there are things that would eventually spark more and more anxiety. And therefore, like, would increase the anxiety and increase his space at the table. I mean, the fact that earlier in the series he's less around and then later he's, like, constantly around, I think says a lot. Obviously you can take some of that to mean just like, oh, because he wasn't there as a character yet, and therefore, like, he was added later in the series because he was added later in the series. But, like, yeah. I think there is something to say that, like, he had a lesser amount of anxiety, and it grew over time as he was dealing with all the various things he dealt with in other episodes in his life. So, yeah.
Interesting. But I added my negative thinking to the list because it's... Virgil, in the previous episode, was called a defeatist by Logan. And he felt kind of put down. I've found it interesting that Virgil really started to want a place in the group. You can kind of see him wanting to be a part of the conversations and wanting to be accepted by everybody, which, I mean, lines up with things in the future, but I guess that's something that I am kind of realizing in the moment. I'm like, oh, actually.
It is interesting.
So with my negative thinking, hearing Logan be like, you did a good job, and I respect your opinion, even though it's cognitive distortions everywhere. I think that you can see that meant something to him, so it kind of gives that mindset of Virgil wants to feel included and feel accepted.
And feel like, understood more than
what he's doing.
So.
Yeah. And feel validated. Honestly, oh my God, saying that out loud, actually, like, I know we were saying that with Patton, but I've always been like, I don't know if Patton really fits me as I don't know if I fully agree with everything that Patton's doing. Like, I'm not really relating that hard to Patton. Whereas, like, with Virgil, that's a lot of me. So I guess I'm
the wanting to be understood.
How much
validated.
I get Virgil? Yeah, I'm just starting to really solidify my kin energy with Virgil. Yeah,
that makes sense. I'm not surprised by this information at all with you.
It's probably like clear as bell to everybody else, and now it's like, oh, actually.
Well, you're wearing a Virgil hoodie as we speak right now, so.
I love him. Anyway.
See, it's interesting because right now you are the most like your side. Like, as I'm sure we mentioned it in the podcast before, but the visual on the YouTube version, we have paper clips holding up our name tags.
Yeah.
Yours is Virgil and mine is Patton. You're the most Virgil you can be right now with a Virgil hoodie. Meanwhile, I'm wearing a spider on my shirt, so I just found that a funny little ironic twist there. I don't know why I needed to mention that at this moment, but
we planned that.
Man, if it helps at all, I'm still an arachnophobe. I'm still horribly arachnophobic, and now that I said that, I'm really uncomfortable looking at the spider legs in the screen.
Virgil. But yeah, no, that's a pretty big plot point. We don't necessarily know why he wants to feel included. I mean, I know everybody has this sense of belonging. They want to belong somewhere.
Yeah.
But for some reason, Virgil really seems to want to be accepted. And I think that also lines up with anxiety in general because, as I say, like every part, there are parts of you that need to feel validated to heal.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not giving them that kind of space, then they lash out. And I think with Virgil, that's a very clear example of that.
Oh, yeah. And we see him do that plenty.
That validation, right. So the next on our list is... I
love that episode.
That's a great episode.
Great episode. I don't remember. How did he spell that, Amy?
I don't know. I don't spell.
Did you already forget exactly what came out of your mouth? I did too.
I lost the spelling bee. So.
Oh.
Yeah.
You walked up and you're like, where's the spelling cue? Damn it! Dumb joke.
They gave me a word and I went, what? And that was the end.
Can you use that in a number, please? It's like, you're eliminated just off of that. Accepting anxiety.
So accepting anxiety is what I meant to say. And, oh boy, I love this episode.
It's the one where Virgil ducks out. Quack.
Because you can really, that was good. Thank you, Patton. You really have this like kind of arc of Virgil wanting to feel included and starting to feel a little accepted and then like dipping back down into like not feeling accepted and then kind of coming up. And it really like, you can see it happen in the episodes after My Negative Thinking. He has this high and then he goes back down because he gets kind of beat down a little more. And then at that point he leaves because he feels like he's not necessary. He's still looked at as a villain.
Yeah. This poor thing. His spooky vibe was his downfall. And this, like you said, is where a lot of that insecurity we were talking about like last week, or whenever, it was more than last week, it was a couple weeks ago, with Roman, where we said that they have a lot of those similarities in being insecure. This is where his insecurities come in because he's just like, you don't even need me, I'm going to drag you down type of energy.
Yeah.
And that's so sad.
And unfortunately, I don't think that this is a hypothetical, the fact that Virgil can duck out, but like, I think if something were to happen to Thomas that would cause a lot of anxiety, Virgil would lash out more. If he continued to duck out, I think he'd still be there, but I think it would be stronger.
You might need to run that by me again, because I don't think I understood what you meant.
The idea that Virgil could duck out is fictional. I don't think there's a way to include that in a psychology standard.
Oh, I think I see what you mean. So the idea of him ducking out like continuously.
Yeah. I think that's the one part of Sanders' Sides that I really feel like I don't think connects to reality psychology.
Fair.
But at the same
That's
time,
the only one?
with that, where's
Not
where's
the Cardigans
other one?
and the Jam? No, I can't.
Well,
I see what you mean.
it's a fair point. It's a fair point.
I
But
see what you
I'm
mean,
saying,
though. Like, that's almost like psychopathy there. Like, the idea that you can just, like, turn off your feelings in that way, like, and have that risk of, like, them being turned off forever. It's like, no.
I think in that lens, it's kind of like we talked about with Patton, how Patton bottles up emotions, or like people, like sometimes you can bottle up emotions and they lash out later into Frog. But but I think because in a reality situation, if you were to really start ignoring your anxiety completely, it would start becoming stronger.
Yeah. That's interesting then. So the idea of ducking out then, like, I guess maybe it's a thing that could be done temporarily, but like is definitely not like a thing that would have lasted in the long term.
No. Especially if there is disordered anxiety there, there's no way.
Yeah.
You'd start to feel physically sick.
Yeah.
Like,
that would bottle up real quick, and then suddenly
you'd start to feel physically sick.
It would lead to an anxiety attack, I'm sure.
Oh, many.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
Gosh.
But
oh, that's so sad then. Wait a minute. So then obviously this doesn't really play into anything super hard because it didn't happen, but the idea that I mean, I guess in some aspect it was already explored in the episode, but the idea that Virgil leaving did more harm than good, but even more so than he even realized, because him trying to take anxiety out of the equation would have led to a bigger influx of anxiety in the end of the day.
So
that's crazy.
That right there, you found. Also, I know I'm holding this up for just a random plug. This is the Ono roller, if anybody's wondering. I'm holding the thing in my hand for the review on Spotify, and I keep holding it up, and I imagine people being like, "What's in Amy's hand?" It's an Ono roller. Go check it out.
Toys. It's not sponsored.
Not sponsored by Ono Roller, but honestly, they're amazing.
Ono Roller, call us.
They're the best. Anyway,
Send me one.
They're great.
They are great. So, I used yours for a while when I was over there.
You did. It was great. Okay, so what was I going to say? Oh, you were talking about a talking point that I heavily relate to with Virgil in that sometimes it really just feels like the efforts you give backfire on you. So you feel like you can't do anything right.
Yeah.
That is another thing that I think is pretty prevalent in Virgil, even at the beginning in these episodes that we're kind of like glossing over a little bit. I think he does a lot of trying to help, and in trying to help, he is causing more friction in the group.
Yeah.
And that's another reason he ducks out, I bet. And I heavily relate to that. And it's the first time Virgil is really like clearly open and honest about his feelings, about what's going on, in accepting anxiety specifically. And it's just, it's a real raw moment for Virgil. Oh, yeah. And I really appreciate it.
It's really good.
As an episode, because it's really good.
It's nice because the others come to find it. The leading to acceptance.
Yeah. And I think that's a pretty pivotal thing in the series as a whole, because now Virgil's considered as like a valid part of the group. Yeah. He was, I mean, I guess he was before, but he was still in that lens of villain, and now he's like not.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that before this he was really considered a valuable asset. And I think this is the one where they were all like, no, wow, we really need him because, oh my God, Thomas is falling apart.
Yep.
Oh my God. It really took the whole thing of like seeing the contributions that aren't as like, motivated by like the energy that he was, portraying up until that point. But yeah. Also, I also think... Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say also, this is the episode, on to the last point that we have written, is the episode that if we're correct, is the origin of his dark voice, his deep voice, his spooky voice, whatever you want to call it.
The deeper, like, layered voice that he has. I think this is, as I've said, this is the episode that made me fall in love with Sanders Sides. And I think the big reason for that is, one, that Virgil got attention and got like that support that he needed. Because I didn't realize how much I loved Virgil up until that point, I think. But one of the real big things that sold me is the mindset of them going into Virgil's, the darkest part of Thomas's mind and staying there and causing a panic attack in Thomas. Like, I don't know if it's clear to everyone that that was a panic attack. It is. Yeah. Because, like, he is directly... He's watching the rest of his side spiral into doom.
Yeah.
And I thought it was fascinating to watch. You have to go into the dark place to understand your anxiety, to be able to pull it out. Like, you have to really look at it from where it is.
Yeah.
And I mean, while I don't agree that like anxiety can just disappear and I think you can just ignore it, I think it is something to be said that you have to go and look at it and recognize it as a valid part of you in the dark space to do that properly.
You gotta face your demons.
Yeah, so with that being said, the spooky voice just kind of helps you get to know Virgil a little better. Because, like, I honestly don't think he just activated something to just do the spooky voice. I think he the fact that the other sides were going down so far, it was starting to get to a place where that just naturally comes out.
Oh yeah, no, I don't think it's definitely not an activated thing. 'Cause I don't remember what episode it was specifically. It might have been. I think it was Moving On, Moving Forward. It comes out and he's like, oh god, like he has a moment where he's like, oh geez. So I think it's sort of it's more of a reaction. It's like an internal reaction that he can't stop. It's like his version of like. I was gonna say his version of like something like the shakes of anxiety, but like he has that too. Like, you know, it's one of those things that's triggered by anxiety, like in his ears.
And I mean, I didn't really realize I had an anxiety disorder when I watched that episode, but now that I think about it, like the amount of things that you can't consciously control that are reactions, physical reactions to anxiety if you have an anxiety disorder, I guess that affirms that too. That's cool. I hadn't thought of it that way. Like the shakes.
Yeah.
Because I know I get shakes.
Oh yeah. Me too. Rarely, but me too. It's so fun. To explain for those who don't have shakes, if I feel trapped in any way, if I feel like I don't have a way to get out of a current situation, or I have to make a decision that's really hard, or I'm just stuck in some way, my body will physically start to vibrate, and it's like I'm cold. Like I'll just sit there and shake, and you can't see it. So like if someone came up to me and I was shaking like that, no one would be able to tell I was shaking, unless it got really, really, really bad. But like it's one of those things that I definitely recognize, and when that happens, it makes me go, oh, I'm anxious. See, I didn't even realize it for the longest time what mine were, because like I didn't physically shake, and I didn't know what the shakes were at that point, but I noticed that there were moments where I would get really anxious, and I would start to feel like that sort of feeling of feeling cold. My teeth would literally chatter, and it would be like I was in the Arctic all of a sudden, and I'd be like, what the hell is that? Why am I cold? And I finally realized I'm not cold. I'm just terrified. It's a really spooky experience to feel, because it's such a like back and forth in the mind. It's like I know that I'm it's warm in this room. I'm comfortable, but also why am I suddenly like it's like possession. It's like a loss of control of your faculties.
I think it's fascinating to think about that and then think about Virgil's voice. And how he feels about that.
Yeah. Excuse me, I think I burped. Whoops. Whoa. We both burped over the course of this episode. I don't know if mine was picked up, but I definitely heard it audibly as I was speaking.
I'm sorry, everyone.
I'm so sorry. See, that was the birth of my spooky voice coming out. It starts as a burp, and it goes up. The burp.
I almost made a mess. Sorry.
Oh, no, don't.
Don't mind me.
As if we don't have enough things to be nervous about this episode. Oh my gosh.
These were all planned.
I wish they were.
But yeah, Accepting Anxiety is so cleverly written, I think, because of how important it makes Virgil. I think he was important before, but now you recognize how much he contributes to the group, because he literally like saved Thomas from panic.
He did, yeah.
And the thing is, like, I think that was just an easy scenario to get out of it because Virgil wasn't the one panicking. But if Virgil's the one panicking...
Yeah, then he needs help. Because it is interesting that in that episode, he's the one helping with, like, the breathing exercise. And then later on, someone else needs to help him with an exercise. So it is interesting.
Where does someone else help him? Wait, I don't remember.
Frozen episode. Him and Thomas with the name 5 things or whatever. Yeah.
You should know, for those of you who are listening, I straight up have been told the groundings techniques in my therapy sessions, and every time I think of Logan, the amount of the times that type of thing happens in my life where I'm just like, well, that's sandwich size. I got that. Everywhere.
I mean, I feel like you also have, like, an unfair advantage of, like, encountering it because you're, like, a psychology major specifically. So, like, you just encounter these terms a lot.
The Yerkes-Dodson curve has shown up so often. That, and then the white bear experiment from dealing with intrusive thoughts, and there was another one. I can't remember. But the white bear experiment came up and I was like, I know that. And like, I see it everywhere. But the Yerkes-Dodson curve I actually had to use in an essay. And I was like, I got this.
See, now all I'm thinking of is a golden girl in a condominium. Okay, am I done yet?
I love that. That's a good episode.
It is a good episode.
Oh my God. What was I going to say? We need to mention the Yerkes-Dodson curve in any way? I didn't really think about that.
I can't think... no, I don't know enough about it to remember.
It's a solid curve. And it's a solid recognition that you need... that too much anxiety is inhibiting, and then too little anxiety is not good.
I mean, I feel like we pretty much covered that, talking about how like people realized how Virgil had a lot more use than was realized. Because like the right amount of anxiety kept Thomas functioning as a person.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, obviously too much is bad.
Yep.
Oh,
yep.
Virgil.
Wow.
Oh my God. Well, before we get to these next bunch of episodes, shall we take a quick Mind Palace moment?
Mind Palace moment?
Yeah.
Sure.
Oh my God.
Okay, so since this went suspiciously well last time, Patton says I have to do it again. So, Virgil here with another unprepared haiku that y'all are forcing upon me. You want more? Really? I'm not even a writer. These aren't even good. Wait, these aren't even good. Wait, did I just do it again? No, I'm not even trying. I don't want to do this.
And that was a moment.
Man, Virgil haikued so hard that I now have a hoodie on.
Oh.
His
and also, I think that was the first time that we've had a character episode where the character was
the moment.
Yeah,
that's definitely right? Something. I think so. I can't unless one of the other ones lined up and we just didn't.
Last time was Logan.
Last time was Logan, and that was last time was Logan on the Q&A. Then the Roman episode had Patton, and then the Logan episode would have had, I think, Remus.
It would have been Remus, yeah. If
that's
it was
the
Patton.
order of how they go, I think. Yeah. So this is the first time where it's like serendipitously like landed on one of the episodes that is relevant to that character.
Virgil is all powerful.
Oh my God, Virgil wins.
Virgil wins.
My God, that's why I'm wearing the hoodie, because it's like the Virgil vibes. Not because not because the spider on my shirt was kind of getting to me mentally, and I needed something that wasn't a spider.
That's fair. Understandable.
This one has my character on it. Yuck.
Ooh. Go check out Tech Real's accounts.
Oh my God, Pashaw. Check out Amy's accounts. How dare you?
Oh my God.
You're gonna advertise me? I'm gonna advertise right back.
Well, shucks.
O'Reilly's.
Oh.
Every time someone says "oh" too many times sequentially, I have to say that.
That's the best thing I've ever heard in my life.
You do know what that is, right?
Oh, of course I do.
Okay, I just want to make sure. I didn't know how local of a thing that was. I just know that's one of those like very memey commercials.
Oh yeah.
Auto parts.
Oh my God. Anyway,
we should really get back to the topic at hand.
Forward.
Oh my God.
So the next episode that we're going to talk about is fitting in.
Yes.
Because I think that's very Virgil-centered here still.
Sorry. You said so, and then my brain was like, so Riley's. I can't stop it. It's just a curse.
Oh my God, okay. I love it. Okay,
anyways, okay, I'm cool now.
No, you're great. It's fantastic. Why my hair? Okay, anyway.
Okay. Don't even get on me about hair. My hair has been annoying me this whole podcast.
Whoopee. All right, now, fitting in is obviously a very Virgil-centric episode, as much as like they're identifying which sides, like which house they fit into for them. Virgil doesn't really have a place, he feels like. So like it kind of bleeds into the idea that Virgil's wanting to feel accepted in the group. So the sides are starting to really headline that, I think, with the houses. And I love that this was the segue episode right after. I think.
Segue episode?
well, it segued right out of accepting anxiety. Like this is the first episode of season 2. It's the first episode after accepting anxiety. It really like introduced the idea that Virgil is now a part of the group and we're going to include him as such.
It sets up his involvement and sort of paves the way for like just the idea that he is now more or less friends with them. Friends may be a strong term at this point, but like he is, you know, friendly acquaintance with them. He does not dislike them.
Virgil or Patton sure thinks there's a deeper connection, but I think Virgil is slowly working into that.
The way my heart hurt the moment you said that.
Oh,
I was like,
it's almost like sadness and angst. Anyway, so
it's great. We love the angst. Oh my God.
You should know, if you're listening to this podcast, you definitely should know that I love angst, and I'm going to be cackling at angst because it's just my favorite thing to watch characters really go through it.
Oh yeah.
Just because I really love the growth that comes out of that usually.
Makes sense, yeah.
So it's exciting to me.
A lot of good stuff. It's a lot of tragedy, but it's like good tragedy.
Yeah.
I mean, Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah.
You seemed very confused about that.
I don't know where that came from.
Oh, but tragedy. Enjoying tragedy in media is my
Romeo
point.
and Juliet in and of itself.
I'm not comparing them to Romeo and Juliet.
Fitting in versus Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah, you know, the perfect comparison. Harry Potter, Shakespeare. Actually, those two fit together if you watch a certain episode of Doctor Who. Anyways, that's a real fact.
It's crazy.
But anyways.
All right. So
fitting in.
Something I want to point out with fitting in is the mindset that in the fandom, when this episode came out, I don't know if this is when I saw it or if I saw it after, but someone pointed out to me that when Virgil is going through the 4 houses at the end of the episode, he's just like, I'm this, but I'm not this. I'm this, but I'm not this. And he's trying to really find which house identifies him. The Ravenclaw one, when he puts Ravenclaw on, he goes, I'm a problem identifier, not a problem solver. And it immediately cuts to Logan going, and then he just brushes it off like nothing happened. I find that extremely interesting.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if that's, I don't know if that's kind of the establishment that he actually is a Ravenclaw, or in Ravenclaw, or if, I don't know. I think it's possible that Virgil hasn't necessarily taken the time to look at his self-reflect in a way that really gives him the space to identify with a certain house. Because I think he's still very much in the mindset that his contributions don't completely matter.
That's fair.
Or aren't helpful.
I mean, it's definitely like plays into that sort of insecurity of it's hard to accept anything good about yourself, especially when you have things like anxiety. It's hard to be able to fully identify that in yourself because it just doesn't feel correct. You're sort of hyper-focusing on other things that may seem bigger or have bigger impact overall. So it makes sense why he'd have trouble identifying that in himself.
I think that's interesting. I haven't thought about that before until we started talking about fitting in just now.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh,
it is interesting. So the question is he Ravenclaw? But that's not even the point of the episode.
I don't think he fits in Slytherin.
Huh?
I don't think he's a Slytherin.
Fair.
I don't think. Because, as I say, Slytherin is very, like, they're very, I want to say clever. Mm-hmm. Like, really smart people. My sister's a Slytherin. So, like, they're very smart people who can find their way out of situations. Whereas, like, not that Virgil can't do that, but he's not doing it in a way that is, I don't know. What am I trying to say? I think Virgil isn't doing it. He doesn't make decisions based on his ego, I guess. Whereas I feel like Slytherins tend to do that and kind of like find a way to success that isn't necessarily the way that doesn't break rules, I guess. Because I feel like that's a pretty big I don't know, maybe I'm talking as somebody who knows a lot about Harry Potter.
I was going to say, I have no idea enough about any of this to know any of this. Because I've seen some Harry Potter. I don't know enough to be able to be like, this is what makes this to house, this is what makes this one.
My brain, I don't know if there's anyone in the audience right now that like knows about Divergent. My brain wants to be like, erudite. He's an erudite. But that's a whole different, we don't need that.
Sure.
But he thinks through things logically. Like, but I guess it's illogical, but like I see it. I don't know why, but I see it. I see why he's a Ravenclaw. I can see why he's in the same park as Logan.
That's fair.
In that sense.
Though I guess at the end of the day, this episode was less about who they actually are and what they feel comfortable identifying as.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing. It's that, like, it's not even about what is logically fully true. I know that's where the argument would come in a lot of the time, but the whole point of him not choosing one is because he doesn't feel comfortable enough with any of them. It's like trying to tell someone who to kin. So you can't tell someone who to kin.
Yes, and I think my interest in finding out which house he's actually in, it stems from, because like when I do character analysis, I think about what the character perceives of themselves and then what they actually are.
Yeah.
So like Roman plays off like he's fine and he denies a lot and he just kind of focuses on his goal instead of actually reflecting on what's happening or what's like the logic behind it. In the same vein, I think Virgil has a lot of potential to be very logical in that way, but I don't think he gives that to himself. He's not trusting himself.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's a lack of trust there that would prevent him otherwise like feeling more secure and knowing what to do a lot of the time.
Yeah, and I think I know that the plot of Fitting In is where you're most comfortable, but I'm over here like character analysis though.
That's right.
Where are you? But like
it's interesting that he might be a Ravenclaw. Now, I have to ask just briefly, because I'm sure that someone will ask if I don't ask right now. Between us, what do you say are our houses? Because you seem to know a lot more about this than I do, and I have no idea enough to know.
Oh, boy.
I'm intrigued, just like briefly before we continue. Because no, we're not even done about talking about Fitting In.
Well, I did the Pottermore quiz a long time ago, and I got Hufflepuff.
See, I think I am... I don't remember what it was.
What?
I said I think I did it too, that Pottermore quiz, but I don't remember I don't remember what I got.
I think the Pottermore quiz, it really is where you're most comfortable, I guess. But
see, I don't know enough about the houses. Tell me where to be. Who am I?
Well, Hufflepuff is I love how I'm pulling from Sanders' side saying this. Hufflepuff is the loyal and friendly one, so they're very sweet, and they're also very, they tend to be very, with the friendly aspect, they're very social people, and they're very artistic, and it's like I really want to talk about Divergent. My ADHD is going off, but it's okay. I'm not going to do it. We'll talk about that later. But very friendly, artistic, happy-go-lucky kind of style. Gryffindor is very brave, very really knows what they want and goes for it, like the hero, I guess, the Prince Charmings, if you will. Literally, that's why Roman's like, me, the brave ones, like he's immediately like in Gryffindor because that's and Harry put himself into Gryffindor because he's very like he's the hero. And they're all very like confident people. Ravenclaw is very book smart and very like scientific and logical and just very, from what I've understood, I can feel Harry Potter fans getting offended. But like this is how I've understood it. Yeah. But Ravenclaw tends to be very logical thinking and very book smart and calm, introverted, just kind of not really, I'm not going to go, I'm not going to go on a horse with a sword and just go off. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to stay and actually study and figure out how to defeat the dragon without that. And then Slytherin, from what I'm understanding, are have a bit more of a wit and a cleverness to them that I think it's kind of a combo of Logan and Roman. I almost feel like they're considered the villains because they have a drive. They have such an intense drive, but it doesn't always follow logic. They're clever. Clever is the word that I keep thinking of with Slytherin. Very, like, they don't always have a heart for other people in a sense. I can feel people getting offended. It's like a, I don't know, their focus is more on achieving their goals. And if anyone gets in the way, I'm going to step on Janice, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Dude, I wouldn't worry too hard about offending the Harry Potter fans. Nobody can offend them more than the person who wrote the books. Anyways.
Damn.
Tell me I'm wrong.
I mean,
that's the most I'll say about that situation, but like, just to assure your fear. No one could possibly do them wronger than the person who brought them all there.
Call them out. But, we call her out. But, no, I think I would probably place myself around Ravenclaw or Hufflepuff.
Okay.
I don't think I'm very Gryffindor, and I don't think I'm very Slytherin.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to be a very happy-go-lucky individual while also being very, very logical.
Mm-hmm.
Because now that we've connected Janice with Slytherin, I honestly would probably place you near Slytherin or near Ravenclaw.
Interesting. Okay.
But honestly, the Pottermore quiz is probably gonna.
Probably.
Everybody says, like, you're what the Pottermore quiz tells you, that's your house. And I'm like, I don't fully agree with that anymore because I've changed so much as a person that I think Ravenclaw is more my speed than it used to be.
Also, a quiz is only going to get you so far in any... That's like saying determine your life, but like your life goal by a BuzzFeed quiz. It's like, it's not going to be as accurate as you always want it to be. Even an extensive quiz is not going to always get the intricacies of a person.
Yep.
So, but interesting. Okay. I could be down with being a Slytherin. I want to be a spooky boy. I don't know if they're spooky boys, but I want to be Snake Boy.
But that's pretty much, like, they're willing... Gryffindor is willing to do it in a brave way and also heroic way, whereas, like, Slytherin is more of a tendency to be a villain because they're more willing to, like, step through people's success in the process, I think. Or they're more focused on their own goal.
Oh.
Which is determined, and it's a lot like Gryffindor.
Okay.
But I don't think it's the same. Yeah.
Watch out for me.
Someone tell me in the comments if I did a good job at that. I have no idea if I did a good job at all.
I'm sure you did pretty good.
But anyway. I do think Virgil doesn't fit in Slytherin. I really don't.
Yeah,
I would never put Virgil in Slytherin. No.
Makes sense.
It's too... I feel like it would take him on too much of a guilt trip. Like, I think he'd be really, really guilty in Slytherin.
Fair. There's too much anxiety there to conform to some of the natures of what a Slytherin usually is, I guess, is the consensus here.
Yeah. That's so interesting. I'm glad they used that trope because Virgil really is kind of an enigma that I can see how he doesn't feel comfortable in any house with the position. But I do still think he's a Ravenclaw.
Fair enough. All right, we need to get going. We're like at the we're reaching the time, I think. At least we haven't edited this episode yet, but we're reaching the time, at least in recording, where these episodes are usually like the upper amounts of like what is usually an episode. So we need to get going with these last bunch.
All right. Well, the next episode is Can Lying Be Good? Because I love the reason I place these episodes here is because I love them. No, I'm just kidding. But
I mean, we do love them.
We do love them, but I think this is a very important episode because it establishes that Virgil and Janice connection.
Which makes sense because this episode establishes Janice.
One of my favorite things to do in Sandersides, and this is just proof of the cleverness of Thomas and his team, just the idea of how you've got to watch every frame that comes on with a character. Yeah. Every time Virgil's on screen, there's times where he just kind of looks at the camera and is like, or just looks at Patton and is just like,
See, I need to look
that's
back
not
at
right.
that.
Something's weird.
The last time I
It's
saw
a
that
lot of
episode, knowing it was Janice, I was looking more at Patton than anyone else. So I need to look at Virgil again the next time I watch that.
But I mean, I think that's any episode of Standard Sides you watch. I think it's really important to watch the little mini frames of reactions because those reactions are so pivotal to knowing what that side is thinking and knowing where that side is coming from. And I think in that specific episode, there are many shots where Virgil's like, that was weird, Patton. Why did you say it that way? And you can tell, I think, I can't really stand by this because I haven't seen Can Lying Be Good in a while, but I think you can see the moment or the general idea of where Virgil's pretty convinced that's Janice.
Ooh.
Like you can start to see him, instead of being like, that's odd, it's more of a, fuck you.
It's like a, it's you, isn't it?
It's more of a like, like as soon as they come out of the theater, the entire time Virgil is just pissed. He just looks angry.
This poor boy.
It's crazy. I love it. But I think that's obviously a point of, we don't know yet why Virgil and Janice have such trouble with each other.
Yeah.
But I think it's really important to notice that there is a past there that Virgil's trying to escape from. And you can tell.
Interesting vibes.
And that's the first time you see that.
Yeah. What might the future hold in regards to their past?
I love those two. I love them so much.
They're just the
That's my
best
favorite
ones.
relationship in the series. It always will be. I love it so much. I love it. I love it. I love
Oh
it.
my god. Well, next up, embarrassing phases. Talking about this poor boy. This is a rough one for Virgil, I'd say. Because Virgil encounters a couple things.
Yep.
He's like, right out the gate, Virgil just wants to have a good day. He just wants to have a good spooky vibe day. And all he's met with is just confusion and, people patronizing him or just being like, you're not even doing your job? How dare you? And it's like, whoa.
They really come in with a vengeance.
They really do. It's like all he wanted to do was spook.
The judgment.
It's so unfortunate. It's like, man.
That seems to be a trend because I'm noticing we heard that with Patton because Patton gets judged a lot like that.
Yeah.
And I guess Roman does too. So like,
I mean, they all judge each other quite a bit because they all have very different mindsets.
Yeah, but they really gang up on each other occasionally.
Oh, that's what you mean. Yeah, I guess that is true. Every once in a while, they all there's one side that everyone will just be like, you're the you're the punching bag today. We're coming at you. We all kind of feel
every
away.
side so far. That's every side so far.
You think so?
Yeah, because Logan gets ignored. So he gets talked over and just completely disregarded. Patton is the childish one. So in people's minds. Everyone underestimates him, so they'll gang up on him that way. Yeah. Roman is just in fantasy land.
So everyone thinks he's just
reality.
Just nutso bonkers out there.
Yeah, and then Virgil is a little too much sometimes in their minds. Those are all things that, like, I don't agree that those sides are being, but they're getting told that they are.
Interesting.
Wow.
Meanwhile, they're also saying, like, Janice the villain and Remus the obstruction.
I'm so ready to learn about their stories more.
Oh, yeah.
I'm so ready.
But
yeah.
Yeah, no, so everyone gangs up on Virgil in this one.
Good example.
On top of there being some Patton issues. Because...
Yes.
So, what was it? In Learning New Things About Ourselves, I believe? There's a point in that episode where Virgil sets up a boundary with Patton. Because...
I think that's huge. The fact that he even knew that alone, we probably should have added that to the list because that's relevant. Because that's the first time Virgil stood up for himself.
He really did, and it's really nice to see him stand up for himself. In any form. But the idea that... what was it? You remember the quote better than I do. I always muddle it up. The thunder.
I don't always like when you talk about me like I'm some innocent, harmless angel. And then I don't remember exactly what he says, but it goes, it takes away my thunder.
Yeah. So he sets up this boundary with Patton that, like, he wants to be treated less like, a little baby boy. But in this episode, Because I've seen people online plenty talk about, like, Virgil being kind of a clod to Patton in this episode. But as someone who has experienced people breaking boundaries in the past, when you try to very clearly state why this is a boundary and why you need certain things to be a certain way, especially when they're pretty simple things to abide by, you know, you can start to see in this episode why Virgil, hearing Patton, because there's a couple moments in this episode where Patton sort of breaks that boundary slightly, obviously unintentionally, but where he, you know, is patronizing Virgil at the beginning by trying to be like, oh, you totally scared me, kiddo, don't worry. Or, like, there's a moment, I think, where he, like, starts to and then cuts himself off when he's, like, calling Virgil some sort of, like, cute stuff. So it's immediately breaking this boundary that he had set, and something that's really important to him. So clearly when he sees that type of thing happen with someone he just set that with, it's going to be very frustrating.
Yeah. And I think in another sense, like, there's an element of patience that comes with boundaries that I think Virgil gives him to an extent, but because it happens so frequently in that episode, Virgil starts to, like, get harder about mentioning, hey, back off.
Yeah.
I mean, you can see it. He kind of, like, shrugs some of them off, but then at the end of the episode, he's like, okay, Patton. Like, so there's, in any boundary, it really is something that you need to really, that in order to make a relationship successful later, you have to pay attention to.
Yeah. And how long ago before this episode was learning new things? Like, when was that in relation? Was that the episode right before?
I can look because I have it right here.
Yeah.
It was the episode before.
So that also is a factor of, like, again, like, not only is it something that was, like, specifically stated, but it was so recent. It really was just like he just set this boundary, and immediately it's being broken, like, multiple different ways, multiple different times in the one episode. And it's just like, that's so frustrating, seeing something like that happen when you just told someone. Because it's just like, I just told you how to not do this to me, and now you're doing it already.
Yeah. And just to kind of briefly state, a boundary is something that you tell somebody else that you need for the relationship to continue without causing rifts of, like, resentment and frustration. Like, when you tell somebody a boundary about yourself, like Virgil did, in the sense of, like, hey, I need you to stop saying that I'm, like, a sweet cherry muffin or whatever. He told Patton that so that he wouldn't be hiding any kind of resentment later, because he knows that makes him uncomfortable. So it's a way to create stronger relationships, knowing that you're intentionally trying not to upset or bother someone else in the future. It strengthens relationships if you're doing it right.
Honestly. And it's a two-way street, because as much as it is important to be able to say the boundary, it's important for the other person to abide by it and to try their best to respect it.
Because if you don't feel the respect, that causes more issues later, because you don't trust that person anymore.
Because then it's not even just that they're doing a thing, but now they're doing it when they should know that now this bothers you. And then it feels like, okay, so what, do you not care that it bothers me? Or, like, you really cannot just, like, hold that level of control to not do that. So
I can find, I think I'm going to find an article about boundaries and put it down in the description with the other stuff we're talking about, because I didn't realize this was something we were going to talk about. But that's awesome.
Boundaries are important.
They're very important.
My gosh.
Yep.
So yeah, it was good to see him set a boundary, but, like, it's definitely why in this episode there's a bit of tension with Patton there, because breaking boundaries ain't fun.
It starts the ride of tension between the ride.
Oh, I guess we'll talk about that in just a minute or two. But next up we have DeWitt, which I know you're quite a big fan of.
Well, I think, real quick, because it is important to mention that in SVS, seeing, well, I guess Patton was against Janice in that episode. Okay, never mind. I was going to say, okay, we'll get there. But, so dealing with intrusive thoughts is a very important moment for Virgil, because it is the first time we're really seeing Patton and Virgil being like working together as a team to try and stop something.
Yeah.
I don't think we've seen that before. And with that, Virgil is putting his full faith in what Patton's saying. Mm-hmm. He's worrying that Thomas isn't a good person because Remus is active. So with that being said, because that's what Patton is saying, he's trying to stop Remus as well. But in that, he realizes after Logan talks about it, he's the one that's hurting Thomas. Not Patton. And you can see it in his face when Remus is like, uh-oh, looks like the cat's out of the ball bag. Despite his best efforts, Virgil's the bad guy, or whatever he says specifically. But like, looks like the cat's out of the ball bag. Yeah.
Ball bag.
Isn't that what he says?
Is it? I know cat's out of the bag is a term. I don't know about ball bag.
Ball bag. Yeah.
Maybe.
We'll have to go look that up.
Well,
I think that's what it is. I used to have the episode memorized.
I've never heard that phrase before used that way.
If you want to look it up while I'm saying this, you can. Okay, that's fair.
It's going to mess with the recording is why.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's fair. But you can see it in Virgil's face. He feels terrible. He doesn't want to hurt Thomas ever. And he knows he did in the past. He doesn't, that's part of his whole thing. He really just doesn't want to cause more stress to Thomas. So the fact that he's causing more stress and recognizing that Patton's the one that's inspiring that, and Patton hasn't been helping his boundaries.
Whew. He going through
that makes complete sense why he starts to push away.
Yeah.
It makes complete sense. And he starts beating himself up for it. And watching that as someone with an anxiety disorder, boy, howdy, that feels like me. And I mean, the because I was one of them line is up for debate. I don't think we can really look into that too far, because that I think there's a lot of interpretation of that line that we haven't really understood fully yet.
Yeah, I know we've had debate on what exactly
we've had debate on that line, and I don't think we can get into it just yet.
No, okay.
But just because I'm afraid of dancing into theory territory.
Fair.
But
I mean, not like we haven't already, to be fair, in previous episodes, but yeah, I see what you mean though.
I just think that line is the first. I think it's just really important for me to, or just something I've noticed is when he says, because I was one of them, Thomas backs up and he goes, see, told you so, kind of in his face, and then sinks out.
Yeah.
That was the most vulnerable he's been. And then when Thomas steps back, he feels immediately like, I'm the problem. See that? That's exactly how I thought you would react. I'm the problem. Bye. And he just said that shit. And I love him.
Oh my God, it's him. Hi. He's the problem. It's him.
It's not the problem.
Epic
I love him
Taylor
so much. He's not the
Swift
problem.
reference. Oh.
He's not the problem.
He is not the problem.
But he's internalizing that at this point. And I think that's the last time we really see Virgil deliberately dealing with the main plot. Because the rest of the time we just kind of see an extension of his issues with Patton, as well as his stress,
which he has a lot of.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So I know the last thing we have here on this list is some of the asides. I think the plushie episode also counts as an asides now. I'm pretty sure that's true.
There's been episodes that have changed out of an asides.
There have.
So the Working Through and Choosing Plots is no longer an asides episode.
Which makes sense, because that's a very plot-heavy episode.
It's a very important episode.
Which makes sense. But I know we have 2 episodes, Working Through Intrusive Thoughts and the plushie episode, in relevance to going back to Virgil and Patton. And I think you'll be able to explain a bit more than I will, because I know you noticed that relationship changing more than I do.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of people who don't like Virgil, or who have a preference of another character over Virgil, that are really fight for the idea that Virgil's being an asshole. And I agree with that. He is being an asshole, but I don't think he's doing it in a way that's it's fully pressed by his self-hatred, as well as self-hatred and the fact that he feels like nothing he's contributing is helpful in any way. So that's all spiraling to make him a bit more aggressive, kind of like how depression will do that to you, and make you lash out that way. But also the fact of Patton feeling like he was betrayed by Patton to an extent. And now that Patton is being closer with Janice, he's going down the deep end. We're dying.
Yeah, I know we talked about that a bit with Roman too. So that it's this pair that is just both so impacted by Patton and Janice becoming somewhat closer, or like Patton somewhat more understanding Janice. It really has such a ripple effect on these two.
It makes me...
Which is so sad because, geez, why can't Janice just have a nice thing without it becoming a problem for everyone?
But that's the thing, like, whatever that history Virgil has with Patton, Virgil has with Janice, is intense.
Yeah.
And it caused an extreme distrust in Virgil. So from working through from dealing with intrusive thoughts on, there's not a moment where you see Virgil where he's not making some kind of jab at Patton. Even in the plushie episode, I can't remember the specifics, but he definitely just kind of like looks at Patton and then moves right on. And
it's so sad. They used to be such best buddies.
It's cold, but it's not Virgil. I don't agree with Virgil's actions, but I can't say that they're not valid because he's been through a lot and he's dealing with a lot. And because of his lack of trust in himself and everything, he's trying to fix the problem in any way that he can. And he feels like Patton's part of it. Yeah,
that makes sense. It also is interesting. I don't know if we said it specifically, but it's an interesting just thing to note, just because it's kind of funny, that they both held Patton in decently high regard for a while, both Roman and Virgil. And now that they've both, quote unquote, lost Patton in that way, they've both come together. So it's interesting that they both had this one person, which was Patton, that they held in high regard. And now the moment he leaves, there's a vacuum, and then suddenly now they're more buddies now, in the same way that Roman and Patton was, or Virgil and Patton was.
I think that's interesting in the lens of both of them are focused on the future and focused on making a brighter future and not really focusing on what could work now.
Okay.
If that makes sense. Roman is always thinking about the dreams, of course, and Virgil with anxiety, we were talking about how it's future oriented.
Yeah.
I think both of them are foreseeing these courses of actions leading to bad things in the future because of what's happened in the past. So that's why they're forming a bond.
They're both very future forward. That makes a lot of sense, honestly. Oh my god.
Have I mentioned how much I love Sandersides? Have I said that?
Good.
Have I said that? It's cool. It's cool because it works so well. And I think it's going to be I'm so interested to see this finale because I think this is really going to come to a head.
Oh, yeah.
This is really going to... I can see the setup. You can see it, and everything's going to crash here in a bit. I'm so ready. I'm going to lose my mind. But I'm willing to be patient for it because Thomas is back. But...
That's the thing. The one thing we can't do on Sanderside's anniversary is be like, where is it? It's we would never do that on any day.
No, because it's really important to recognize, especially if you aren't a content creator, it's so hard to make content.
Oh, yeah.
It's so hard, especially if you want to make it good.
Oh, yeah.
And if you have such a small team, editing takes forever.
Oh, my God.
And writing and getting the writing right takes forever. Researching, because he's having to do a lot of research for this. It's hard.
I will say that from my own personal perspective, I guess I could just say this because it's not something that's going to happen anytime in the near future. But for a little while back, sometime last year, I think it was last year, I was... I see the look in your faces. You realize what I'm about to say, I think. I have no idea. I was going to make a thing for a certain amount of time has passed since I had I had met Thomas a while back, and I was going to make a video, which was a sequel to a really old video I made, and it was going to be in the format of Sandersides. It was basically going to be my own Sandersides episode. And I never even got fully to script writing. Just in the planning process, I drove myself bloody insane.
Yeah.
It's insane trying to put something like that together, especially when you're one person. So like, just coming off of that experience as as trying to make one Sandersides-ish thing that never even got to came to fruition and never even got into the real meat of it. It's a hard thing to make.
Yeah, and I mean, I think on top of that, imagine that planning stage becoming more and more intricate the more you think about it. The fact that he was going to make it one video and now it's 4.
Mm-hmm. It's huge.
What? So having been in a situation where a project got bigger and bigger the more I thought about it, that I'm about to finish,
what could you be talking about?
What can I be talking about? Check out my page here in the next week. But anyway, it's just something that I sympathize with so hard because I know how hard it is, especially if you've got a small team.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know. I see a lot of people being like, where is it? Where is it? Please be patient with him.
Honestly, speaking as a content creator, nobody wants the thing to be out more than the person making it. That's something that's so important to remember.
Oh my God. I literally, oh my God. No, that right there. Yeah, that. The amount of times that I've heard Thomas say something like, I want it out so bad.
Yeah.
And I'm like, me.
It does.
My God. Because the thing is, it's an image in your brain. It's an image in your brain. You know what it's supposed to look like, but then you have to do it. And it takes so much work to do it. And you get angry because it's not there. It's not just in your hands and you want it, especially if you have ADHD. And it sounds like, I think from what I've heard, Thomas has ADHD. That's so hard.
It's a pain.
That's so hard. Anyway, that's my soapbox. I will wait forever for that episode. I'll wait for the rest of time. I'm fine.
I don't know about the rest of time, but
I'm okay with the rest of time because I'm willing to be as patient as he needs.
That's the thing. I'm impatient, but I will understand through and through why it takes so long.
I think about it this way. Every day that passes is more detail that he's putting into the project.
Very true. That's really cool.
Think about it that way. So.
Oh my gosh. Well, we've exhausted our list of episodes. Shall we now delve into a little bit of how Virgil as a character has impacted and reflected in our lives?
Yeah.
Should I go first? Because I feel like you're going to have a lot more to say on it.
I mean, yeah, I've said a lot of what I would say, but go ahead.
That's fair.
I think you... Yeah.
I got lots of anxiety. The end. No, we're done. I'm leaving. I totally, Virgil is something I notice in my everyday life. I don't know if I have an anxiety disorder, but what I do know is I have a lot of it. I have a lot of it in a lot of different aspects. So, those fears that he constantly has is something that I see in myself just constantly. It's just one of those things that is very second nature to just consider every possibility and every route and everything to avoid certain issues. It's I don't even know fully how to explain what I'm saying. It's just one of those things that I look at him and I'm like, yeah, I've never been more seen than in this character. Just I relate a lot to characters that make me anxious. Chidi Anaganye from The Good Place. If you know him, me. But it's wonderful. But I mean, honestly, I really don't know what else to say other than just surface level of I deal with anxiety quite often, quite constantly. Mostly social anxiety. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Virgil is me.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's not a lot of good and accurate representation of mental health disorders in the media. Mm-hmm. And even Chidi, I think, is a little blown out of proportion. Just a tad. Sure. Just because he's... I don't know, I think to an extent, I think it's just very lightly blown out of proportion, but maybe that's just because I don't have as deep of a connection with Chidi as someone else might. But
me.
Virgil But that's the thing. I recognize that may just be me.
Yeah.
But I know Virgil specifically, the way that he's so self-deprecating, the way that he is trying to be the good guy, but genuinely just feels like he can't, and everything's going against him. Like it feels so raw and real to my anxiety. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, when I didn't think I liked Virgil very much. My first original, like the character I loved the most was Logan. Mm. And the reason I loved Logan is because of my love of like robots and the Uncanny Valley and stuff. And Logan kind of had a standoffish, like that's kind of human behavior, but not quite. That's why I loved Logan. And I do still love Logan, but I think once I recognized how much Virgil, I connected with Virgil. I didn't even realize that that was why I liked Virgil until someone pointed out to me that my Virgil is kind of disguising himself as Logan in a lot of instances. Once someone said that to me, I went, oh. And then like I started to see Virgil a lot more in my life. And I was like, oh. And that's when I realized I had an anxiety disorder, because then I was like, oh, well, I need probably go look at this, because that I don't know how to fix that. Yeah. And the thing is, there's no fixing it. But like, I started to recognize it as Virgil instead of recognizing it as Logan. So thoughts, for example, like, I'm not good enough for this, I thought were coming from Logan. Mm-hmm. They weren't. They were coming from Virgil. Mm-hmm. And it was like, oh, whoa. And so ever since that happened, I've solidified just an intense love for Virgil, because every move he makes me feel very seen. I don't feel like I've done a lot of the things he's done, but like the mindset of like, this person is hurting the goals that I have, or this person is hurting something that I'm trying to achieve, or is hurting me in some way, I just want to run away. Mm-hmm. I just want to go that way and not do anything. It's an unhealthy mindset, but it reminds me of the Amy that was so stuck in anxiety. I feel so seen by this character in ways that I've never felt seen before. And I feel like there's a lot of people who are just like, well, Virgil's just annoying and he's just, he's, I don't know, too much. Yeah. He's just angsty. He just sits there and pouts and whatever. Trust me, he's more real than, he is. And I think you can relate to that too, Tech. And I think that's true about any of the Sandersides characters. And that's what I love about Sandersides, is just how much detail goes into these characters and their true, raw psychology behind them. Yeah, and I think that's why they're so beloved.
Yeah, it's easy to write off something as I don't even know how to quite describe it. It's easy to write something off as a certain thing if you don't experience it yourself.
Yeah. And,
as, the two of us are very well versed in feeling anxious in every day, all the time, we can say with quite certainty that Virgil is a really good, if not one of the best, representations of anxiety that we've seen in media.
I love him.
So good.
I love him, and just some of the connections that I've made in trying to determine what this future episode is going to be, some of the things that I've found out or I've understood through, kind of solved in my own head, are just, I'm so excited to see this episode come out, because it feels like it's going to be an episode that comes right out of my own therapy sessions.
Yeah.
In that respect. I feel like I'm so excited. I think it's going to be really, when it does come out, because I don't want to rush it, but also when it does come out, it's going to be a very honest and raw retelling of things that I've been through these past few years. Mm-hmm. And I think that's beautiful. I love Sandersides. I think they do such a good job. I'm just, what?
Oh my God. Blah.
Blah. Can you tell I'm a fan? Can you know? No. Not at all.
Try harder.
Oh. I love, do you see Virgil on my jacket? No, I'm just kidding.
My jacket? No,
I don't have a jacket.
Oh, well. Anyways.
Anyway.
Oh my gosh. Well,
Yeah.
that's about it, I believe.
I love Virgil. I'm so glad we talked about this. This is great.
Good.
It's
Oh my
good.
god. Now let's go, because the sooner we sign off, the sooner next week comes, and the sooner we can talk about Janice.
Oh my god. Someone's excited to talk about
I
Janice.
might just be.
That's going to be a cool episode.
It's going to be going.
Keep watching. We're going to have a new episode next week. And we're going to have, are we telling
No.
about? No. Cool. Never mind. We're not doing that.
Yep. Anyways, you'll
Can't
see
wait
that
to see y'all
secret in a
next
while, I
time.
guess. Shrug. There's no secret.
There might be
What?
surprises coming. I don't know. Yeah, we're going to be here every week for a while. And thanks for listening.
Thank
folks.
you guys. We love you.
You're wonderful, and I appreciate you taking the time to do this. Share this with your friends if you think they'd like it. We're going to be talking about more Sanderside stuff and kind of from all angles of Sandersides, both in the canon lore and also in the fandom.
Yeah, so stay tuned. All right, goodbye, folks.
I love you.
Love y'all.
Bye.